What's up everyone, I'm Kyle, you're watching Drivin and Vibin. Today we are hopping back into our vintage Airstream Argosy renovation, and we're going to be doing that by picking up our newly fabricated wheel wells, modifying those a little bit further so they fit this perfectly, and then seeing what she looks like. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel everyone. So glad you're here today. Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date on all these renovations and other things pertaining to RV life. But to start it out, we got a lot of people asking us why we are fabricating our own wheel wells rather than using the pre-existing ones. Well, let me show you what the pre-existing ones look like, what we took out of our 79 Airstream Argosy. This is the wheel well. It is made of a flimsy plastic material. You can see it bending like this, which I can imagine might be a decent quality to have for a blowout, that it has some flex to it, but that was not enough selling point for us because, as you can see here, it's cracked. The plastic over time has just become, looks like it has less integrity than it did on the day it was made. Understandable since it's over 30 years old, but we thought we don't want to use that. We want to get something fabricated that's going to have more durability, more protection in a blowout, and just look good and new. So let's go inside the Argosy and I'll show you what we're working with. Alright y'all, so before we go look at these new wheel wells, I want to kind of take you through the process that brought us to this point. Rather than just taking the measurements of the wheel well and saying, alright, this is what we need, I really wanted to mock up something so I can see how it fits down in the well, how we can attach it best, how it will have the least obstruction with anything around it. So I mocked up this wooden wheel well. By building this box, I really got a much better idea of how to get this thing fabricated and also explain the idea I had better to the folks at Dennis Aluminum that were actually going to be fabricating the aluminum wheel well for us. Alright, so this is the wheel well. Now, pretty much what it looks like right now is just a, what is it, 5-sided box with a lip on it. Now, I did this because aluminum is relatively easy to cut. I have confidence in our tools and my abilities here to modify this after we got this back from them. I wanted the curve to be just perfect to where it was going to be carved out here. That was one of my reasons for doing this, but I also didn't want the fabricators at Dennis Aluminum to spend any additional time that I didn't feel was necessary, because getting anybody to make another piece is expensive, especially when it involves brand new aluminum, beautiful welding as they did. That adds up relatively quickly. The folks at Dennis Aluminum were awesome, but I did not want to put any more hours on their clock than necessary with projects that I could complete. So the deal is, let me scoot back so you can see this. Oh yeah, it's big. It's I would say it's not super heavy, it's just big and awkward. So this is what it looks like, and what we're gonna do now is set it into place. I'll show you how the lips work, and then I'll show you where we're gonna be tracing the outer curvature on it, and then I'll be cutting that, and then hopefully we'll be one step closer to get this thing installed. Alright, so as you can see in this clip right here, that lip runs over the C-channel a little bit. I'm going to have to cut a notch out of the lip right there first before we trace the outer curve of the Airstream. So let's see how this jigsaw will do with cutting it. The guys up at the aluminum place said it should work just fine. I'm interested to see, so let's pull it out and see what happens. So before I get started with the jigsaw, there are a few tight places where I'm gonna at least have to use this in the beginning. See how it works. If it works well, then I'll just stick with this, less aggressive. But let's see what happens. All right, so now after a lot of elbow grease, that is fitting in there very nicely. I'm gonna take you to the outside now to show you what I'm talking about when I tell you we gotta cut out a big curve. So let's head out there. All right, y'all, so because we just had Dennis Aluminum fabricate essentially a metal box, we're left with this overhang you see right here. Now, like I said earlier in the video, I wanted it that way so we could measure exactly that curve on there and get it cut out exactly to the right measurements once the wheel well is in place. So what I'm gonna do right now is push this aluminum skin against it, because right now the aluminum skin is a little floppy because rivets have been taken out, and it used to be tight because it was connected to the wheel well. So we'll slightly push this against the wheel well, and then with it pushed against, we'll trace the edge of it and see what happens. All right, y'all, so it was a little wet out there, making the Sharpie line not completely consistent, and with the angle I was able to trace it at, I just have to remember that I need to cut right on top of the line rather than through the line. But other than that, the curves came out nicely, and beyond these curves, you know, I just gotta focus on a straight line until the next curve comes up. So I got the important parts down, but before I start working with any heavy equipment, I gotta put on some gloves, some shoes, make sure that this is an OSHA work environment. So let me do that and then we'll get to cutting. All right, guys, so I got some semi-protective eyewear on, got some gloves on, I even put shoes on. We're gonna see how this jigsaw will cut the wheel well. The guys at Dennis Aluminum said it should work just fine, so I hope it does. Let's get to it and see what happens. So what I'm finding is that the wooden blade is working all right. Now, whenever I was up at Dennis Aluminum, they told me I wanted a wooden blade that had smaller ridges on it, I guess you would call it. And this one is a little more rugged, which is fine going in a straight line, but when I'm going around a curve, I really have to focus and turn it hard and keep the blade going fast. If I slow it down, it makes it much more challenging. I'll bring you a little closer to see what we're actually doing over here. Guys, so I'm making some good progress here. This is working pretty well. I got some other blades just in case I want to switch them out or this one gets dull. but what I really needed to do was put some ear protection on. I'm used to loud noises, and that's fine. Cutting wood, no big deal. But the sound this makes cutting the metal, I could feel the damage being done to my ear, and I had to put on some protection. So, got that taken care of. I'm gonna go a few more passes with this one before I attempt to change it. Or maybe I'll go ahead and change it now. All right, so I got a new blade in, and getting my gloves on right now. I'm going to just make this cut and focus on that, and then we'll be back in action. So to make this cut on the curve, I'm gonna switch over to a metal blade. That way I can kind of make the curve more smoothly. While this blade cuts through the aluminum much more quickly, it doesn't do well on the turn. So let me switch that out real quick. Next step is securing it into place. We're going to secure it by two different ways. The first way is going to involve taking off one tire at a time so we have better access. We're going to drill holes through the wheel well and through the metal frame, and then we're going to bolt the frame into place. We'll bolt it using stainless steel bolts, but we'll also use a rubber washer so the steel and the aluminum don't make just constant solid contact, because we don't want the two types of metal corroding each other. So that's the game plan. First, I'm gonna loosen up the lugs on this rear wheel, then I'm gonna lift it up slightly, just take one wheel off at a time, and we'll get to bolting this thing on. Alright y'all, so now I'm just going to be drilling some holes through this aluminum, through the lip of the steel frame that's hanging down, and then we will bolt this on. So let's see what happens. So, I'm gonna put the wheel back on now. This thing is looking great. It's gonna be holding so awesome. Very happy with these bolts. But again, once we finish all this on the outside, I'm gonna put some self-tapping screws on that lip on the inside too, just for extra stability. In case of a blowout, I want this to be so super secure. Now, I'm about to put the bolts or the lug nuts back on here. And I want to give a huge shout out to Randy and Diane from Zephyr Travels. They sent us these beautiful upgraded chrome closed end lug nuts. So we're gonna put these on real quick and show them off to you guys. So let me screw them on and I'll show you what they look like. All right, y'all, so the project is pretty much done for the day. I do have to remove the other tire and put the bolts on, but since I already showed you how I did that on one end of the wheel well, no use repeating that. And then we are just gonna self-tap the screws in on the inside, on that inside lip. I'll show you one more clip of the inside, what it looks like now, and I'll go ahead and show you another clip of what it looks like on the outside. This is looking so sharp. I am so pleased with the way this wheel well has come together. I think it's gonna give us some great protection, and I think it looks nice. So thank you for watching this video.
If you got any insight, any input, always let us know what you're thinking, and let us know any information that you might have that might make these jobs easier, or the Airstream renovation come along with more ease. So thank you again for watching, and we'll see y'all next time. Later on.